Hi folks, as promised we're continuing our series of introductory guide videos aimed at helping new and returning players make best use of the in-game systems and gameplay mechanics. Rather than one massive video, I will be doing more videos in future covering different parts of the game, including weapons and subclasses, so I will be trying to cover all the foundations. In our last video we were looking at the interaction between armor and your character stats. If you haven't watched that yet, I'll leave the link to that video in the description below. In this video, we're going to take that one stage further and have a closer look at armor mods. There are so many different parts of the game that come together to create your Guardian. It is a massively in-depth game that allows you to be as casual or as invested as you like. There is a different type of activity for almost everyone. Input equals output, so the more you put into the game, the more you'll get out of it. Once you reach higher levels and start fully unlocking all the different parts of your Guardian, you can then start thinking about taking on more and more challenging activities. One of the best ways to do that is getting your build to synergize, meaning, for example, getting your subclass to work in harmony with your weapons and your armor all at once. That will become more apparent for you the more you play, and there are so many different ways to achieve synergy, and some of the core components are your armor mods. We touched on it briefly in the last video, but simply put, if your armor and your character stats are the foundation of your Guardian's strengths and weaknesses, the process of adding armor mods is one of several ways to fine-tune and strengthen your build. Before we go any further, it's worth reminding everyone that it's entirely okay to play the game without having completely fine-tuned builds, especially as you're leveling up and learning about your Guardian and the game in general. Also, it's been a long time and I'm not entirely sure about the process for new Guardians now, but it may be that you won't unlock all the armor mods until you reach a certain Guardian rank. I think it's about rank 4 or 5. That's also fine, trust the process. Okay, firstly we'll have a look at general armor mods. General armor mods we've already touched on in the last video, but these are the mods that will help directly round out your character stats. They are always equipped in the first slot on each piece of armor. I've got one of my older builds here just so I can demonstrate, and I've already stripped out all the armor mods. All of my armor here is masterworked, but again, just a friendly reminder that masterworking armor takes up rare resources, and you should really only start masterworking once you're at a higher level and feel ready to start putting together optimized builds. If you get your armor energy levels up to around 5 first, that will do fine for a start. So looking at my character stats, you'll see that I've got tier 6 resilience and tier 9 recovery, and I've already got tier 10 discipline, thanks to a combination of my armor stats and my subclass stats. These stats will be different for you, and that's fine, and you may decide there are other stats you want to focus on increasing, and that's also fine. For this particular build, because I can, I'd like to try and hit tier 10 on both resilience and recovery. There are armor mods available for each character stat, and 2 of each. One which will give you plus 10 stat points, and then a minor mod which will give you plus 5 stat points, depending on what you need. You'll notice in the top right corner of each general armor mod, there's a number which determines how many energy slots are used up when you equip it. So at the moment, without anything equipped, I have 10 unused energy slots. I want to do my recovery first, so I'll equip this recovery mod here, and you'll see my number of unused slots has gone down to 6. Now when we go back to the character screen, you'll see my recovery has reached tier 10. Next is my resilience, so I'll just quickly do that on the remaining armor pieces. Okay, I've got my general armor mods in place where I want them, along with my character stats. Now that we've done that, we can start looking at the separate armor mods for each equipment slot, as helmets have different mod tables from arms, arms are different from chests, so on and so forth. You can just go into the details of each armor piece to change your mods, but there is also this very handy overview screen where you can see all your armor mods together at once, and how many energy slots you have available per armor piece. On Xbox, you press right on the D-pad from the main character screen, and then for PC and PlayStation, I'll let you discover that for yourselves. Before we start, Remember that every armor mod is there to help your build, and really the only determining factor is how you want to play. Whether you want to strengthen your abilities in your subclass, strengthen your weapons, be more offensive, defensive or supportive, or generally improve overall synergy. If you try a build that isn't working for you, you can always come back and change things around. I won't be going into the fine detail of each and every armor mod because it would just take too long, but I'll provide you with enough detail to point you in the right direction, whatever your build might need at any given moment, and try to focus on the more important points. In order to bring up the mod table for one piece of armor, you need to hover over one of these empty slots. And every time you want to add a mod, you want to first select the next empty slot. Also notice how some of the armor mods become grayed out as I equip these, because I'm using up energy slots and therefore only certain mods remain available. For every mod in the game, there is a brief description of what they do, as well as a small footnote to explain whether or not you can stack them, or if they have additional conditional requirements. Equipping multiple copies of a mod can produce stronger effects, but often with diminishing returns. And here, for example, I can equip a special ammo scout mod, which generates extra special ammo for my fire team, but it won't work unless I have a special ammo finder mod equipped as well. So seeing as we're here already, first up we have ammo mods. So like I said, I will be doing a weapons video soon, but in general the recommendation for PvE content at least is to always have one primary weapon, which always has infinite ammo. Then you want a weapon running special ammo, which packs a bit more punch to deal with higher level orange and yellow bar enemies roaming around. And then finally heavy ammo, which is generally what you want ready for boss fights. With these mods you can make sure that you have plenty of spare, special and heavy ammo dropping, and if you're feeling extra generous, you can make sure your fire team is getting some as well. Next, we have a series of mods focused around speeding up power for your super, where using your class ability, melee or grenades will help generate extra energy for your super. Just to clarify, class ability for hunters is dodge, for titans it's putting up the barrier, and warlocks it's creating a well. There's even a mod here where getting final blows with your super will generate additional orbs for your fire team. So when we're talking about orbs, we're literally talking about glowing orbs of power that you can find on the battlefield, either generated by you or other players, and there are plenty of weapons, abilities, and yes, armor mods which help orb generation. Generating and collecting these orbs is important for every build, as they will help generate power for your super, as well as give you a buff called an armor charge, providing you have the right mods equipped. At their base level, armor charges can go up to 3 stacks and will last for a total of 10 seconds each, unless they are recharged, and you can determine what buffs they give you using your armor mods and fine tune how your armor charges behave. Just remember, picking up an orb of power gives you an armor charge. 3 orbs of power equals 3 armor charge stacks. At 10 seconds each, that's at least 30 seconds of uninterrupted buffs. Green mods like these will do one of 3 things: give you alternate ways of gaining an armor charge beyond an orb of power, give you or your teammates extra armor charges, or extend the duration of armor charges. Here, for example, casting your super or picking up an orb will grant your fire team extra armor charges. So what do armor charges do? Well, this blue mod here is a good example of how armor charges can boost your stats or weapon damage significantly. When I pick up an orb, the Font of Wisdom mod here will give an immediate 30-point stat boost to my intellect. In this case, it would push my intellect all the way up from tier 4 to tier 7. Remember those diminishing returns? If I equip 2 of these mods, it would add another 20 points for an additional total of 50, and if I had a build where I could add a 3rd copy of this mod, it would add another 10 points for a total of 60. Next, we have siphon mods, which basically turn your weapons into orb generators after rapid weapon final blows. The first one is a harmonic siphon mod, which changes depending on your subclass. The benefit here is that it has a minimal energy cost, and as long as you have weapons that match the same element as your subclass, those weapons can generate orbs. So in my case here, for example, my primary and special weapons wouldn't benefit as they're solar and kinetic respectively, and my subclass is currently void. My void heavy grenade launcher on the other hand would benefit. I would need to equip kinetic and solar siphon mods if I wanted the other 2 weapons to generate additional orbs also. Remember, if you are using siphon mods, Make sure your weapon elements match where needed, and thankfully they are now very nicely color coded too. Next we have a new addition with the final shape, the in-flight compensator, which will increase the airborne effectiveness of all your equipped weapons. Bear in mind this is a very PvP focused armor mod. Next we have targeting mods, which will help improve target acquisition, accuracy and ADS speeds for weapons with a matching element type. I would usually match these with your primary weapon, and again these are generally more relevant in PvP. Note the harmonic targeting mod here, much like the harmonic siphon, which has a cheap energy cost but will need to match your subclass and chosen weapon. Now you'll see on your gauntlets you have a whole different selection of armor mods for slots 2 to 4. And in the first couple rows you'll see a whole selection of mods focused around your melee and grenade abilities, and these can be very useful indeed. The very first mod, Fastball, is again a really PvP focused mod and a nice to have if you have a spare slot available for PvE, and just increases the distance you can throw a grenade. Next we have Firepower and Heavy Handed, both of which can generate orbs from your grenade and melee abilities respectively. Then we have Momentum Transfer and Impact Induction, which can reduce melee and grenade cooldowns just by causing grenade and melee damage. Now we get to the first of the yellow kickstart mods, which like the green and blue armor mod also have a lot of interaction with armor charges. We have grenade kickstart here and melee kickstart here. If we take grenade kickstart as an example, imagine you've collected 3 orbs of power and now you have 3 armor charges. When you throw your grenade, you'll consume all 3 armor charges and get 28.4% of your grenade ability energy back instantly. You will however lose all 30 seconds of your armor charge buffs. Same goes for melee kickstart, and generally for yellow armor mods I don't recommend people use them apart from very focused and advanced builds. We also have the blue armor charge mods here, Font of Focus and Font of Vigor, which boost your discipline and strength stats respectively when you pick up an orb. Now this is a good time for a reminder, because I have my discipline stat at 100 already. I would never think about equipping Font of Focus, because even though it would give me additional stat points for discipline, just remember that all character stats are capped at 100, anything above that is wasted. Next we have Shield Break Charge, which gives you an additional way to gain armor charges. So if an enemy has a solar shield for example, and you break that shield with either a matching solar ability or a solar weapon, you will also gain an armor charge. Next we have the loader mods, and these do actually have a lot of purpose for both PvE and PvP. We'll discuss this more during the weapons video, but many weapons in Destiny 2 can be extraordinarily powerful, but also have long reload times, and when you're in the midst of a boss fight or surrounded by a swarm of enemies, you want to get the damage output up and running as quickly as possible. That's where these come in handy. Next we have the dexterity mods, and for these I'd say they are better purpose for PvP. If for example you're getting closed down quickly by an enemy player and you're running a solar primary and a kinetic shotgun, you'd at least want to consider a kinetic dexterity mod so you can switch to your shotgun as quickly as possible. First mods here we have on the chest are elemental resistance mods. When you start doing more endgame activities such as raids, dungeons or Grandmaster Nightfalls, and you know what kind of damage the enemy will produce, you can equip these mods to match their elements and mitigate the damage. Next we have some additional defensive resistance mods which provide more generalized on-the-go protections. Concussive Dampener mitigates area of effect damage such as fire, explosions, void pools, etc. Melee damage resistance mitigates close quarters damage from enemies within a 4-meter radius. And sniper damage resistance mitigates damage from enemies outside a 29-meter radius. Now the interesting thing here is that any combination of these elemental and defensive resistance mods will stack with each other. The damage mitigation per armor mod scales at 15%, 25% and finally 30%. So if you have an arc resistance mod, a melee mod and a sniper mod for example, you will have 30% arc, 30% melee and 30% sniper damage mitigation all at once. The other thing to note with all of these is that none of them have any effect whatsoever in PvP. Please bear that in mind. Next we have Emergency Reinforcement, which gives you 10% damage mitigation when your shields break and consumes your armor charges. Font of Endurance will give you a 30-point stat boost to resilience should you need it with any armor charge. Charged up will increase the number of armor charge stacks you can have, so in theory, if you run 3 charged up mods, you can get a total of 6 armor charges, meaning a total uptime of 1 minute for any buffs. Lucent Blades increases the recharge rates for swords and glaives and is obviously super focused on those particular weapon builds. Next we have Unflinching Aim mods, which are usable in PvE, but again I'd say have more purpose in PvP. They literally reduce flinch from incoming fire, and like the resistance mods, any combination of these will stack. Just make sure to match them to your weapon damage types. Finally, we have Elemental Reserves mods, which will increase the overall amount of ammo you can carry. If, for example, I had both Void Special and Heavy weapons equipped and paired with a Void Reserves mod, I would be able to carry more ammo for both. Onto the leg armor mods, which on this particular build happen to be an exotic pair of Orpheus rigs. So just a quick reminder with regards to Artifice sockets, which are essentially an extra armor mod slot, which can be found on all exotic armor pieces and even on some legendary armor pieces. On exotic armor, they do cost 1 exotic cipher to enable, which are exceedingly rare, so please make sure it's an exotic armor piece you're going to use a lot. In this case, Orpheus rigs are quite easily one of my most used pieces, so I'm more than happy to demonstrate. Now that's enabled, you'll see I have a series of forged armor mods which give me +3 stat points depending on what I choose. In this case, the only place where I would gain any tangible benefit would be mobility, because when I add 3 points, that shifts my mobility into the next tier. Okay, now let's have a look at leg armor mods. I won't go through each of these, but this first selection of armor mods may look like they might be orb generators, but in fact it's the other way around. Whenever you pick up an orb, each of these can give a health, grenade, melee or class ability cooldown boost, or even all your abilities combined. Both the green mods here give you additional and alternate ways to gain armor charges. The different items referred to here are all additional assets generated somewhat like orbs, depending on either the subclass or weapons involved. Don't worry about these too much for now, we'll cover these in another video. Next we have a whole series of blue armor charge focused mods, but this time they interact with your weapons rather than your character stats. Called weapon surge mods, they can give you a very nice outgoing damage boost whenever you gain an armor charge, and that applies in both PvE and PvP, although the effect is lessened in PvP. Next we have the Font of Agility, which gives you a mobility stat boost when you pick up an armor charge. These elemental holster mods will gradually reload your stowed weapons over time, which may seem like a minimally useful function, but it is also nice to be able to switch between weapons knowing they're pretty much always ready to go. And then on the next page here we have elemental scavenger mods, which essentially give you an additional way to pick up extra ammo. Sometimes you can never have enough. Finally, on your class item we have a whole selection of weird and wonderful mods. The first 3 here will reduce cooldowns for your melees and grenades when using your class ability, or all 3 including your class ability if you use the distribution mod. But please note, you have to use your class ability near enemies for this to trigger. Next we have a kickstart mod for your class ability, which will give you a percentage of your class ability back when you use it, but it will also consume your armor charges. Font of Restoration will boost your recovery stat with any armor charge. Time Dilation can be a very useful mod, as it will significantly extend the duration of your armor charges even with just one equipped. One Time Dilation mod will add 5 seconds per armor charge, so with 3 armor charges and a total of 30 seconds duration, you now get a total of 45 seconds. Powerful Attraction is a somewhat unique mod, and one that I generally use on every single build, as it allows you to gather up nearby orbs whenever you use your class ability without having to run over and pick them up. Now the next selection of mods, from Proximity Ward here to Empowered Finish here, are all focused around finishes. When you get an enemy's health down low enough, you'll see a little white dot above their heads, and that's your cue to hit them with a finisher of your choice. They're a lot of fun, and they do actually serve a purpose against stronger enemies, as you can dispatch them quicker. But it's been a long time since I saw anyone recommend a finisher mod in a build. All the yellow mods do have some utility, but again, they will consume armor charges. Finally, we have the Reaper mod, which is definitely worth consideration, as it means after you use your class ability, which you will do almost all the time, your next final blow with any weapon will generate an orb. Don't let yourselves get bogged down in the details too much. I'm going to show you a few examples of the builds that I use for different reasons, for different game modes, and it will just give you an idea of how varied and different the selection of armor mods can look. The main thing after that extensive look at armor mods that I want to highlight is that you are not expected to use all of them at once, nor immediately remember where everything is and exactly what it does. Equipping your Guardian to make them harder, better, faster and stronger is a constant exercise of trial and error, even for more experienced Guardians, and sometimes happy accidents happen. At the end of the day, make the build work for you first. We've still got weapons and subclasses to cover in future videos, neither of which are small topics either, but I promise you the more you uncover, the more you'll feel everything coming together. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons, as it's all I'll ever ask of you. Until next time, stay frosty, be good to each other, we'll catch you on the next one.